Join me, Jonesy, for interviews, recaps and much more. So tune in, unwind and get your sporting fix. Welcome back everyone to the 19th episode of the Sporting Fix. It's great to have you wherever you are. I do appreciate you clicking the play button and listening to the Sporting Fix. It does mean a lot to myself, of course, and there's a bit to cover, right? So there is a lot to cover, actually, not a bit. I'm talking about footy. I'm talking about controversial comments made in the weekend or over the past week. And I'm talking about cricket and then a special thing at the end. So stay tuned for that, probably the last 5 minutes. If you want to go straight to it, skip there. But before you do that, go straight and listen to me now because we are talking footy and it was the showdown to kickstart things this week. And it was a Jake Saligo special. It was a perfect game from him. It was a perfect game for a lot of players, but him in particular, he obviously took the showdown medal and Adelaide got up by 5 goals. But I wanted to mention Matt Crouch. Most underrated player almost in the competition at the moment. His clearances, his contested possessions, his disposal efficiency, his body work, his ability to win the Sherrin, for some reason, doesn't get acknowledged enough in this game. And there's a lot of people, there's a lot of media, there's a lot of journalists, honing in on certain players. But Matt Crouch is just left out of the equation. And I haven't heard a lot about him by anyone. And so I just wanted to, I'm obviously not a journalist, but I just wanted to lock in on him and analyse what he actually does. He is brilliant with his contested work, as I mentioned. He's brilliant in the midfield, and there was a certain time last year where he actually didn't get picked, and when he did, it took him, I don't know how many rounds it took him, it was probably about halfway through last season where he actually got picked in the AFL at the top level again, and he just did not miss a beat. He won the footy 30 times and used the footy perfectly, and that's how he's managed to keep his spot from then all the way to now, and he will continue to keep that spot because he is winning the footy, using the footy, and tearing teams to shreds. So Adelaide win by 5 goals, but it's a reflection on Port Adelaide. They couldn't kick. They couldn't kick straight. Connor Rosie was left on with a tight hamstring, so that's Ken Henkley's fault, I thought. I thought it wasn't smart at all. The week before, he had an issue with his hamstring, and they still decided to play him. So there's an injury concerns at the Power. So that is not good for them. And they're a good team, they're a quality team, but they manage to, in big games, so in the showdown, and in big games, they manage themselves to fail. They just make footy look hard. They make it look really difficult. And in other games, obviously, when you verse poorer teams, you make footy look better because you're a good team. So when they versed Adelaide, and it was a big game, and Adelaide are a good team, and we've found that out over the past couple of weeks with a Carlton victory, and now a Port Adelaide victory. We've found out that they are a good team, and they were last year. They just missed out on finals. I keep banging on about that, but it's because the start of their season was terrible, but now they're coming good, and we're starting to see the real Adelaide. And Port Adelaide, when they versed them, they made football as a whole look so tricky to play. And it is tricky to play. Obviously, if you're new to the game, you can't just be good overnight. It obviously takes time. But they made it look really hard. They could not hit a target. They could not kick in front of goals. They did not win the footy. And this is credit to Adelaide. I'm not dissing them. I'm just saying when Port Adelaide had the footy, they were terrible. Really terrible the way they used it. So Port Adelaide need to be better. They need to lock in next week. And they need to win the footy. They need to get back to the basics. Ken Hinkley has banged on over and over and over before at the start of the season. So the showdown, Adelaide win by 5 goals. It's a very good victory. Isaac Rankin sealed the deal from about 50 metres, I think it was. So it was a good win for the Crows, and they are back in business. And they will keep winning games. They've got a nice little fixture up ahead, and they'll be trying to win as many as they can to get themselves back towards that top 8 finalists. So I'm only analysing about 4 games because these are the ones that stood out to me, and these are the ones that are probably the most important. I've left out the irrelevant games for now because there's a lot to talk about and it's tricky to fit it in to a small time because my voice gets destroyed and my throat is just terrible when I keep banging on. So I'm leaving it to 4 games, Pies and the Blues, and it was a massive game. Obviously, they're 2 huge clubs, the 2 biggest in the league, so why am I going to go past that? I'm not. 88,000 in the house, should have been more. I thought it was going to be more, beyond 90 when you got 2 big clubs, but it wasn't because the AFL are terrible. Crisp is not mentioned. He's like Matt Crouch, but in one game he was not mentioned, and he deserves to be mentioned. He had 10 clearances, and yeah, people get more than that in other games. That's fine, but in this particular game, where it was a scrappy footy, where winning the footy was a really big deal and tricky to do, and winning clearances was tricky, Crisp did everything he could, and that is why I'm praising him at the moment. 10 clearances in a game of footy it is extremely good, and yet you might see more than that in other games, but I chose to mention him because this game of football was so intense. It was so incredibly physical, and winning the footy was not easy to do because you get the footy, you get tackled. You get the footy, you get tackled. You get the footy, you get tackled. So it's hard to find space. Crisp found space, and that is why I am praising this bloke. 10 clearances in a game of scrappy football is never seen. Centre clearances, defensive stoppages, he was there for Collingwood. And then you move to this bloke, Dacos. Obviously the match winner for him and his team. And I've seen a couple of videos, some footage regarding this play. And it's not Blake Acres' fault. It's not his fault at all. But he left his man, and when you leave your man, you've got to ensure you make up for that if you lose the footy. So he left his man, ran at the stoppage to win the footy, but he didn't win the footy. And that was the mistake. He left his man to win the footy. He didn't. So what he's got to do is he's got to sprint back to his man that he was on when they've lost the footy. He was too slow. Off to Dacos, into the boundary, into the goal, game over. But you can't judge a game of football on one play. So I'm not dissing Collingwood. I'm not dissing the Blues. So I'm not dissing Acres. It's so easy to define a game of football in the last 30 seconds, in the last minute. It is easy to do that. I'm not doing that. I'm just saying in that time, you just got to make sure you win that game, that you win that stoppage, you win that footy, and you get it out of there. Because Carlton were off to the races. They had numbers out, and they were looking to score. So, big game, big result, close game, 88,000. Everybody that bought their tickets and was watching it on the footy got exactly what they wanted. A close game, a good quality game, and the atmosphere was electric. Then we move to the third game I've chosen to talk about, and it was the D's and the Cats. And I chose this game, one, because it was a unique result. I was not expecting the Cats to lose, especially to Melbourne. Melbourne are a quality team, but obviously Geelong were beating every team, so I couldn't see why they would lose to Melbourne. But this is why they lost to Melbourne, because Melbourne's defensive game wiped Geelong out of the park. And you talk about May, you talk about Lever, the way they link up, their body language, their body use, the reason they win one-on-ones is because they nudge out their opponent fairly, and then they take the mark and they are off. They did it so many times. You ask any Geelong supporter around the area, you ask any player that watches footy around the area, they will say the same thing. May and Lever won that game of footy for Melbourne in every way, because the amount of entries Geelong had, they had enough entries, well and truly enough entries. May and Lever were there, as they always are, but they especially deserve the applaud and the recognition in this game of footy because it was a big game for Melbourne. They had to win the game. They did. They find themselves in 4th spot. Obviously, it was a scrappy game, a defensive game, as I said, so it was no goals. No goals in the second quarter. I think it was the first time since 2022 that there were no goals in a quarter due to the defensive efforts and the way that no one could actually move the ball forward without scoring. So the Cats lose. Obviously, it's about time they lose a game. They were 7-0. They are now 7-1 after 8 rounds. And then finally, this game, it wasn't a good game to watch, but it was a good enough game to talk about in terms of fans in the state of Queensland. So it was the Q Clash. It was the Suns and the Lions, and it was a game that had a record attendance. I think it was 30,285 people. Not a lot, obviously, comparing it to Victorian teams, but you look at the Queensland where it's, rugby orientated, it's not football, but then you get 30K in there, and it is good. But it was the reason because they had the Q Clash on the Queensland long weekend Labor Day. So they've got to keep it like that. The state government, the AFL, must keep the Q Clash on the long weekend. It's the only reason you can get people flooding into the gates and get the turnstiles clicking over, that's for sure, if you keep it on the Labor Day weekend. Zorko, obviously you can't go past the bloke. 40 disposals, 30-plus kicks. He was brilliant on fantasy. He got about 180, so if you had him captain, lucky you. It was very good. Or fortunate you. But there was bittersweet, that game. It was a bittersweet. Brisbane won convincingly, obviously, but it was bittersweet. McCarthy, Gardner, ACL, out. Gone. A year. They come back next year, round 8, they might be ready. But it's a shame. It is a shame because they're important players. McCarthy's important in the forward line. He adds that spark, and Gardner, well, you just know what he can do. He's good all around the ball. So it is a shame for Chris Fagan and the Lions. Starcevic is out for 4 to 5 weeks with a calf strain, so they'll miss him. So there is a bit to work with. Obviously, Ashcroft is out with his ACL. He will be back this year. But there are a few injury concerns for Brisbane, and I mentioned them for Port Adelaide, and obviously Richmond are the team that's getting hard done by injuries the most. But it is important, obviously, it's like the most generic thing you can say is that it is important to keep your players fit and healthy, because when you verse important teams and they're not there, you lose a game of football. You lose a game of football if your good players aren't there. McCarthy out, good player. Gardner out there, good player. Starcevic is very versatile and good. And for them all to be out, Brisbane are in a little bit of trouble. But I think this goes to show the injuries. Let's see the character that they build. I want to see the character that they build, Brisbane. I want to see the way they go about it, the way they overcome adversity, and the way they can verse teams who are good quality without their key players. They've still got Neil. They've still got a bunch of players, but those are the ones that are out. So it'll be interesting to see where they go from then with their injuries. That is football recapping done. That is the 4 games that I've mentioned done. Obviously, the other games I didn't choose to because they weren't as important. And as I said, I've got to get them all done within a certain amount of time, roughly. And my voice goes broke if I keep talking for an hour without any stopping. So I go to this game, or not this game, sorry, this moment in the week. And I was not actually taking it seriously. I didn't actually think this person was being serious when I heard it. But it started popping up more and more and more, and I started to think, holy moly, it's actually serious. So, Eddie McGuire, I don't know, mixed thoughts with him. I like the bloke, and now I don't know if I like the bloke, and you'll see why. Eddie McGuire obviously commented because there's a new Tassie team making it 19 teams, and obviously the most logical response to a 19th team in the AFL is a bye for each team every round. So there's a bye every round for each team, and you just play your 9 games as usual, and a team will miss out every week. So that's the context, that's the consequence that comes with 19 teams of footy. Well, all of a sudden, you got Eddie McGuire saying they should kick out a team and keep it to 18 teams. I'm sorry, Eddie, but you can't have a Tasmanian team all of a sudden enter the AFL League and just get a Victorian team like North Melbourne, who's been there for 154 years, out. I'm sorry, but you can go away, Eddie. You can go away. And if you think that's the case, well, it's not. Because the history that and he's pointing out North Melbourne, obviously, because they're the worst team in the competition at the moment. But you think about the young players, the future that North have. Young players, McKercher, Sheasel, Larkey, you could name a dozen. Powell, Phillips, Sherry, all these players, all these young players in the North Melbourne Football Club will have no future if they just kick this team out. They've signed Clarko for 5 years at a $5 million deal. That's going to go down the drain if they kick it out, if they kick North out. So everything that the club has done, Sonia Hood, everything she's done, everything the club has done will be for no reason. And the draft, choosing McKercher, choosing Sheasel, choosing Dersma, it will mean nothing because they'll be out of the damn league. I just could not believe what he was saying. And North will be good in 5 years. It's just, obviously, this is not going to happen. And I hope it doesn't happen. It won't happen. They just can't do it. But if it does happen, which I hate to say, but if it does happen, then North and everything that they've built and the history around the club to be replaced by a Tasmanian team, I just could not wrap my head around it. So I was not happy with his comments, and I'm sure a lot of people weren't, because it's a shame, because obviously if they kick out a team, it will be the worst team in the league, and it just happens to be North Melbourne. So obviously one team is going to be last. There has to be a team that's last on the ladder. You just got to keep your 19 teams if there's there. Do not move them out. Tasmania's been at it, so they're going to be 19 teams. They just cannot kick out at a Victorian team or any team for a Tasmanian team to be replaced. Anyway, moving on. I'm not happy with those comments. I'm sure a lot of people aren't. I don't know how you think of it. Leave it in the question on Spotify. What do you think of Eddie McGuire saying those comments? I'll leave it to you. I've got one more thing to talk about before we move on to cricket. And I've been sitting on this and I've been thinking different ways, and it involves Luke Beveridge and the Western Bulldogs. He signed a 2-year deal as head coach. And obviously they're not winning games. They're winning some, they're not winning enough with the list that they have. They've got a very good list on paper. Obviously they're not winning games. So that is a reflection on the coach, obviously. So Luke Beveridge has got to change something, and he is aware of that. It's not like you lose 20 games in a row, which they haven't. But if you do, you're not going to keep it the same. So he knows that he's got to change stuff because they're not winning games. I do think, look, Dog supporters, I can get your frustration around Luke Beveridge and why you want him kicked out and why you want him out of the kennel. I get that, but I think it's time to just wait and see what he does, because you got to give your coach a chance to change the system. You can't just change a system and be good. You just can't. So he's got to change the system, but you got to give him time. You can't just let the bloke change a system, win or lose 2 games and kick him out. You got to get him to change the system, which he will do, but you've got to give him time before they start winning games. It's logic. It is logic, common sense. You start a system, it takes time to build. It's what's happening with Bevo. Obviously, their CEO, the Dogs, she mentioned that they're going to wait, which is smart. It is the smart thing to do. And everyone's saying, kick him out, we don't want him. Just give it time. Give it time. You'll find out. If he's not winning games at the end of the season, then feel free, do whatever you want. But at the moment, let him be. Let him just go about his business. He trusts in the system. He's copped a lot of stick, and he's aware of that. Just let him be, and we'll see how the Dogs go. So, AFL, out the window. I've covered enough of that. It has been a while before we've actually mentioned cricket, and I'm just going to keep my pen. It's been a while before we've mentioned cricket, but we are mentioning it now. Obviously, there's a T20 World Cup, so it's important. It is bloody important. I'm mentioning this. I'm talking about the T20 World Cup, the squad, who's missing out, the importance of the team they have, the position Australia's in, the World Cup. The squad. Smith and Jake Fraser-McGurk miss out, right? So that's already a sign that they're a good side, Australia. If you've got the likes of Stephen Smith, Jake Fraser-McGurk missing out, you've got a good squad. So I don't get the backlash that people are throwing towards Cricket Australia, because you've clearly got a good side if these two players are missing out. So don't be mad, right? Yeah, I wouldn't mind Steve Smith being in the team because he brings composure and skill. I wouldn't mind McGurk being in the team because he brings explosiveness and skill. So it's not the end of the world that they're missing out. In fact, it's good signs. And I'll read you out the squad now. We've got Mitch Marsh, tick. Obviously, you can't leave him out. He's captain, so tick, big tick. Ashton Agar, this is an interesting one. He's an X for me. I think, obviously, McGurk should be in for Ashton Agar, or someone else should be in for him. He just bowls left-arm loops, I think, and I think you got a better person to fill in than him. Pat Cummins, obviously keep him in. He's a fat tick. Tim David is a fat tick. Nathan Ellis is a fat tick. Cam Green's a tick. Josh Hazlewood is a tick. Head's a tick. Inglis is a tick. Maxwell is a tick. Stark is a tick. Stoinis is a tick. Matthew Wade is a tick. Warner is a tick. And Zampa is a tick. So I would honestly get rid of Agar. I'd get rid of Agar, but I don't know who I'd actually put in for him. But, Agar's not going to destroy the team. He's not going to make Australia lose. So I'm happy for him to be in there. And it just goes to show the depth and the positive nature around Cricket Australia. And people saying, Jake Fraser-McGurk, he's not going to get any bloody experience. He's not going to improve. Go and build a bridge, mate, and get over it. Because I tell you what, he's 21 or 22 years old. He's young. He's going to get experience. He's going to learn. Big Bash, he'll play. Sheffield Shield, he'll play. He'll learn from cricket, domestic cricket, all the way to international cricket. It's not like this is the only T20 World Cup that he will come across. No. Next 4 years, he will be picked. He will play T20 World Cup. He will play. And the people that say, he's not gonna bloody improve, they're not giving him any chances. No, they are giving him chances. They're just giving him time. They're giving him time. It is a good squad. Very good squad. Australia, they're favourites to win. In my opinion, they are favourites to win the World Cup. They just find ways to win games of cricket. I think they'll do the same in America. It is the most stupidest location I've ever heard in my life because America don't play cricket, obviously. Somehow they've managed to get 11 players from the United States to play. Don't know how they'll go down. But I'm just excited to see my boy Raheem Cornwell try and battle it out in the West Indies. Hopefully he does get picked and hopefully he opens the batting and plays well. I'm excited for that, that's for sure. So T20 World Cup, Australia in a good position. Agar in, which probably shouldn't be in. Smith, McGurk out. Have your thoughts. Leave a comment in the Spotify questionnaire and go from there. Bang! Footy, tick. Mentioned everything. Cricket, tick. I've got something special, and I did say at the start of the episode, skip to 5 minutes before, because this is the 5 minutes that you've been waiting for. There is a new addition to the Sporting Fix, and it is a side series. And it is a side series called The Lounge. And it will be in here on this couch with me, and I'll explain a little bit more about it. So The Lounge is a side series. It's not scheduled. The episodes will come up whenever they want. There's no methodical manner with this side series. It is just plonk it here, plonk it there. Episode comes out, good, have a listen, whatever. There's no method towards it. The first episode will not be out for a few weeks. It is a less serious, more casual, literally anybody is welcome, not just sport-related interview or chat, I should say. I will sit here behind the mic. There will be another person there or another couple of people there, up to 4 people, because that's what this studio can hold, 4 people. So me and another few people or another one person just chatting. It's a chat more than an interview. I'll ask questions like an interview, but it's a chat. It is casual, laid back, controversial. It is good. It is the lounge. It is called the lounge. You will find this on Spotify under the Sporting Fix. So you've obviously just got to go on Spotify. You search up the Sporting Fix. You click on the Sporting Fix and you'll see all the Sporting Fix episodes, and then you'll see the lounge. I feel like I'm talking to elderly people, and I'm sorry if I am, but I'm just doing step by step. You click on the Sporting Fix, and you scroll through. The blue ones are the sport-related ones, obviously. The lounge has its own logo, which you'll see, and it's pretty damn distinct because it is completely different to the Sporting Fix blue logo. It is uploaded within the Sporting Fix. And there will be multiple people, not just one-on-one, as I said. And I'm just letting you know that we'll put something up on the Instagram when it is first uploaded. And yes, so on the Instagram, we will upload. So I'm just letting you know we will put something up on the Instagram when the first episode is out. So when the first episode is out of the lounge, we will put a link into the Instagram story to give you the link to Spotify so you can listen to it. Because you will enjoy it. It is laid back. It is me and another person, another couple of people talking crap. Dribble. Whatever comes out of our mouth is good. It's just a time waster. The Sporting Fix interviews, however, are sport-related, genuine athletes. No disrespect to the people in the lounge. I'd get on the lounge, it's not sport-related. It can still be famous people that aren't, obviously, sport-related. They can still be famous, just having a chat. There's local people around that want to get on. So it's laid back, casual, fun, good, whatever you want. Less serious. It is the less serious part of the Sporting Fix. Wow. How interested you were for the 5 minutes. It was 5 minutes. Yep. So the lounge is the side series, and you will love it. There's a logo. We will put it up on the Insta. I've said it 20 times. No schedule. You know exactly what it is. So today, on the 19th episode, I am Jonesy. Obviously, we've mentioned footy. We've mentioned cricket. And the new addition to the Sporting Fix. I'm Noah Jones. I am the host of the Sporting Fix. And I'd like to see you soon for the next episode. Have a good night.